May I,
Sorry,
Carla Sands,
he's been jailed now, and he'll be in prison over Christmas.
Carla Sands, may I politely say that you're evading my question? And the question is that Donald Trump seems to be happy to go to courts to impose limits on free speech in your country and then lecture Europe about imposing limits on free speech over in Europe.
If he sues a network or entity, a newspaper, it's because they have done something that's broken the law.
Right. This interview starts off fairly normal. But trust me, by the end of it, things completely fall apart. A Trump ally goes on television, trying to lecture Europe about democracy and free speech, only to get cornered on Donald Trump's own record when it comes to silencing critics in the United States. And honestly, the hypocrisy here is unbelievable. Before we dive into the full story, comment where you're watching from. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Because once the interviewer starts pressing her on Trump, Ukraine, and free speech, the entire conversation gets very uncomfortable very quickly. Let's get into it.
So the new White House national security strategy talks about wanting Ukraine to survive as a viable state, but is being asked to give up territory that Ukraine holds to Russia compatible with being a viable state? I mean, do you think Donald Trump would regard himself as the leader of a viable state if he was asked to give up parts of Texas to Mexico?
But you're actually conflating two things, and this is irrelevant. The fact is that Ukraine has no pathway to win this war. President Trump and his team are attempting to, I believe, de-escalate this war and get this process on a good glide path to find first a ceasefire and then an end to the hostilities. He wants to make sure that Ukraine, and you can read that right in the national security strategy. It's not a long read. It's available publicly. It's a public document. So we can see that President Trump wants Ukraine to remain a sovereign nation, as he hopes the rest of Europe and the UK will remain sovereign nations. At America First Policy Institute, we look at the America First agenda and we say, let's have our allies have a nation first agenda, secure borders, controlled immigration, protection of the rule of law, affordable and abundant energy, protection of your beautiful culture, freedom of speech, if that's part of your constitution, the fact that every nation should put their citizens first, a credible defense, make sure that you can be a viable country and secure. We need that in every one of our allies.
Now, a big theme for Donald Trump is free speech. And in this new White House document, it accuses Europe of censorship of free speech and suppression of political opposition. But isn't that exactly what the Trump administration is doing in the United States? I'm thinking of how in September, President Trump celebrated ABC's suspension of the critic Jimmy Kimmel, his show. That was great news for America. And in July, Donald Trump filed that lawsuit against the Wall Street Journal and Rupert Murdoch over its reporting of his ties to Jeffrey Epstein. So it's OK for President Trump to limit free speech in the US, but not OK for that to happen in Europe.
Not at all. So free speech is the foundation of our shared, I would say especially UK and US, our shared values. How we got free speech in the United States was from the UK, from hundreds of years ago. And so if we can maintain that, we will be able to have open societies. Once you allow one side to decide what is acceptable speech and not acceptable speech, you have a totalitarian government, because then you will have no free exchange of ideas. And it is happening. Just in Ireland, Enoch Burke, a teacher, because he wouldn't use a student's pronouns. Sorry, he's been jailed now, and he'll be in prison over Christmas.
Carla Sands, may I politely say that you're evading my question? And the question is that Donald Trump seems to be happy to go to courts to impose limits on free speech in your country and then lecture Europe about imposing limits on free speech over in Europe.
If he sues a network or entity, a newspaper, it's because they have done something that's broken the law. Otherwise, he wouldn't waste his time. He absolutely works to maintain his reputation. He doesn't allow himself to be taken advantage of by these networks. And most of them have been working lockstep with the leftist Democrats in the United States.
But if you believe in free speech, if you believe in that, I think it's the First Amendment to the United States Constitution, that is an unequivocal principle. You stand by that. You don't go to the courts when you don't like what people are saying.
Well, when it's unfair or illegal activity, you do go to the courts. But absolutely, I would say most people who are part of the circle of America First do believe absolutely in free speech. We're really worried about this Digital Services Act that the EU has passed, because I do believe that that is a kind of war against the United States. They are working to fine companies like Elon Musk, because he allows free speech. They're attempting to censor the speech in the United States of U.S. citizens. That is blatantly not okay. And it is, I believe, it's a gray zone act of war and must end.
And this is the part that completely blows my mind. Donald Trump and his allies constantly travel around lecturing the rest of the world about free speech, democracy, and censorship. But the second somebody criticizes Trump himself, suddenly lawsuits start flying. Journalists become the enemy, and social media companies get pressured for not protecting his image. That's the contradiction people are noticing. You cannot present yourself as the global champion of free expression while also attacking critics, celebrating punishments against opponents, and threatening media organizations whenever coverage makes you uncomfortable. And the moment the interviewer pushed back on that hypocrisy, you could see the entire argument start collapsing in real time. Even Carla Sands' defense just didn't hold together. Every answer became a deflection instead of a response. Because deep down, this is the problem for Trump supporters, trying to sell this message. Internationally, the record simply doesn't match the rhetoric. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Do you think Trump can genuinely claim to defend free speech? Or do you think the criticism here is completely justified? If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next upload.